So 12 seconds back in the year 2000 and down to just 8 seconds today.
Right.
That is the baseline digital attention span that we're dealing with right now. I mean, if you're trying to communicate an idea or sell a product or, honestly, just get someone to stop scrolling.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Seriously, you have an 8-second window before their brain just automatically categorizes your message as totally irrelevant and moves on.
It's fast.
It's incredibly fast. So welcome to today's deep dive. For you listening, our mission today is to really unpack the modern psychology of consumer attention. We're using this recent marketing and management strategy piece by Stella Pop, and we're going to look at the underlying behavioral mechanics of how businesses are actually seizing opportunities in an era where, time is literally measured in microfractions, and your margin for error is essentially zero.
Yeah, and that 8-second statistic is, it's often thrown around as this huge indictment of modern society.
Right, like we're all just losing our minds.
Exactly.
Right.
You hear it and you immediately think, it's a massive cognitive deficit.
Yeah.
Like our brains have just degraded to the point where we simply lose the capacity to sustain any sort of focus.
Yeah.
But structurally and neurologically, that's just an incorrect reading of the data.
Wait, really?
Yeah. What we're actually looking at is a highly evolved, ruthlessly efficient defense mechanism.
A defense mechanism against, the sheer volume of the digital fire hose. So we aren't losing our ability to focus. We're deploying a hyper-aggressive filter.
Precisely. Because, if you think about the cognitive load placed on a person just scrolling through a modern digital feed, it's completely unprecedented in human history.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got constant notifications, targeted ads, direct messages.
The algorithmic recommendations just constantly pulling at you.
Right. Every single pixel on that screen is engineered to extract your attention.
Yeah.
So if our brains actually attempted to deeply process every single piece of stimuli we encounter online, we would be completely paralyzed by cognitive overload within minutes.
They would just shut down.
We would. So the brain adapts. It shortens the evaluation window. That 8-second span is not a failure to pay attention. It's the time it takes for the brain to run a really rapid heuristic check.
Like a quick scan to see if it's worth it.
Yeah, exactly. To determine if the stimulus holds any immediate tangible value. The threshold for irrelevance has basically dropped to zero. We've become these expert split-second editors of our own reality.
Which, that forces anyone trying to communicate in that environment to fundamentally restructure how they present information.
Totally.
Because to understand how to survive that 8-second filter, we really have to look at the psychological state of the user in that exact moment.
Right.
And the Stella Pop piece makes this critical distinction here regarding device context. They point out that, desktop computers are generally for browsing, but mobile scrolling is entirely optimized for action.
Yeah, device context completely dictates the cognitive state of the user. Because when someone sits down at a desktop computer, they're often engaging in what psychologists might call a divergent thinking state.
Okay, divergent meaning?
Meaning they're exploring, they're opening multiple tabs, they're comparing options, and just allowing their attention to wander across a much broader landscape of information.
Right, because the physical posture of sitting at a desk implies a commitment of time.
Exactly. But a mobile device is inherently transient. You use it in transit, in waiting rooms, or just in those brief gaps between other activities.
And the data supports this shift in mental state completely.
Yeah.
Like the source references this concept championed by Google, which they call the micro moment.
Right, the micro moment.
Yeah. It's this ultra-compressed window when a user realizes they have a specific need, they pull out their phone, initiate a search, and just execute a decision. And the statistic here is just staggering.
It really is.
92% of people who search on mobile end up making a purchase or taking a definitive action during these micro moments.
Yeah, that 92% conversion rate is basically the holy grail of intent.
Yeah.
But, it only happens because the user is operating in a state of convergent thinking.
Convergent, right, as opposed to divergent.
Exactly. They aren't looking to explore anymore. They're looking to collapse a problem into an immediate solution.
They just want it fixed.
Right. They have an itch, and they want the friction of scratching it to be absolute zero. So when you see a conversion rate that high, it indicates that the successful platforms aren't actually persuading the user to want something new.
They're just getting out of the way.
Exactly. They're simply removing every conceivable barrier between the user's pre-existing intent and the final execution of that intent.
So to put that into a cognitive context for you listening, think about the mental energy required for different types of tasks. If desktop browsing is like lazily wandering through a library looking for an interesting topic to research,
Right.
then mobile scrolling is like running into a convenience store because you need a specific candy bar.
That's a great way to put it.
You have a mission, and you want zero friction finding it. You don't want to browse the aisles. If the candy bar is hidden behind a display, you just grab a different one and leave.
Right. The micro moment is entirely about the preservation of momentum. The user enters the interaction with this massive surge of goal-oriented dopamine.
Yeah.
And the business's only job is to channel that momentum without disrupting it. So every extra second of loading time, every confusing navigation menu, every dense paragraph of text.
It all just acts as cognitive friction.
It does. And if the cumulative friction exceeds the user's motivation, which remember has an 8-second expiration date.
Right, the clock is ticking.
Exactly. The momentum breaks and they bounce.
Which brings us to how businesses are actually physically redesigning the digital landscape to eliminate that friction.
Yeah, the architecture.
The source material outlines several ways companies are ruthlessly editing the user experience. And it starts with mobile design optimization, specifically making content entirely skimmable.
Right. Nobody reads anymore.
No, they don't. You have to strip out the dense prose. You rely on bullet points. You deploy short, easily digestible lists. You anchor the argument with a hard statistic to instantly establish credibility, and you use a direct quote from a trusted source to validate the premise so the user doesn't have to do the background research.
Yeah, and this is a textbook application of reducing cognitive load. I mean, in an 8-second window, reading is essentially impossible.
Because reading takes too long.
Right, reading requires linear processing. Skimming, on the other hand, is spatial processing. The user's eye is just scanning the architecture of the page, looking for visual anchors.
Like a bullet point.
A bullet point acts as an anchor. A bolded number acts as an anchor. And when you use a trusted quote, you are essentially outsourcing the cognitive heavy lifting of trust verification.
Oh, that's interesting. Outsourcing trust.
Yeah. The user's brain basically says, I don't have time to vet this company, but this recognizable authority figure vouches for them, so I will just borrow their trust.
It bypasses the whole analytical filter.
Exactly. It speeds up the decision matrix dramatically.
But wait, let's play devil's advocate and pause on that for a second.
Yeah.
If we are actively reducing everything to, like, 3 bullet points, a flashy statistic, and a borrowed quote, aren't we just manipulating dopamine rather than communicating actual value?
Yeah.
Like, it feels like we are deliberately stripping away all nuance and complexity just to bypass the brain's critical thinking centers. Are we not just dumbing down the information ecosystem to cater to a really exhausted user base?
It's a completely valid concern, and honestly, it gets to the core tension of modern digital communication. But I would argue that editing a message down to its absolute essence requires a much deeper mastery of the subject matter than, say, writing a 10-page essay about it.
So less is more.
Clarity is the ultimate form of sophistication. If a business cannot synthesize their complex value proposition with a few precise bullet points and a compelling statistic, it usually means they don't actually understand the fundamental pain point they're solving for the user. So we aren't dumbing down the information. We are translating it into the visual language that the brain is currently utilizing in that specific environment.
So the 8-second constraint actually forces you to be a much better, sharper communicator.
Exactly. It forces you to respect the user's time. And, that philosophy of friction reduction extends far beyond just the formatting of text.
Right.
The Stella Pop piece emphasizes the necessity of a streamlined user journey, particularly focusing on the interface architecture. They point to tactics like deep linking as a way to minimize bounce rates and cart abandonment.
And deep linking is such a perfect example of this psychology in action, because instead of sending a user who clicked on an ad to some generic corporate homepage,
Which is the worst thing you can do.
right,
Yeah.
you send them directly to the exact specific product page or the checkout screen they showed interest in.
Because sending a mobile user to a homepage introduces this massive spike in interaction cost.
Right, interaction cost.
Yeah, which is the sum of mental and physical efforts a user has to deploy to reach their goal. If I click on an ad for a specific pair of shoes, and I'm taken to a homepage where I now have to navigate a menu, select a category, and manually search for the shoes.
The interaction cost has completely skyrocketed.
Right. The cognitive momentum we discussed earlier is completely shattered. Deep linking preserves that momentum by instantly fulfilling the expectation that was created by the initial stimulus.
Okay, so we've optimized the text and we've streamlined the architectural pathways, but we really have to address the massive elephant in the room regarding attention.
Video.
Video. Text is no longer the main vehicle for capturing these 8-second micro moments. The source notes that video content was projected to make up nearly 82% of all digital traffic moving out of 2023.
It's staggering.
It is. But the underlying mechanics of how we consume that video have fundamentally, quietly changed. We aren't just watching more video, we're watching it totally differently.
We have decoupled the visual from the audio, which, if you think about it, completely contradicts how the medium of video was originally engineered.
Yes. The numbers in the Stellapop report highlight this beautifully. 69% of users watch videos with the sound completely off when they are in public spaces.
Makes sense.
But the behavioral shift runs even deeper than just social courtesy, because 25% of people opt for silent viewing even when they are completely alone in private settings.
Wow.
Consequently, nearly 85% of all Facebook videos are consumed on mute.
85%.
Yeah. We all know this is happening because we all do it, right?
Yeah.
But the implications for how you structure a message are profound.
It's a fascinating regression to the silent film era, but with, entirely different cognitive demands. For decades, traditional advertising theory relied on this balanced duality.
Right.
The visual track showed the product, but the audio track, the voiceover, the pacing of the music, the subtle sound effects, that carried all the emotional and persuasive weight of the narrative.
Yeah, it told you how to feel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So by voluntarily muting the device, the audience has unilaterally shut down half of the communication channel.
So the visual component can no longer just be a supplement to the script. I mean, it has to become the entire language.
Right.
The source highlights this by pointing out that full-bleed, high-resolution video posts attract a massive 135% higher organic reach than regular photos.
That's a huge jump.
It is. And it's not just about movement. It's about utilizing every available millimeter of the screen to convey information without sound. So text captioning and nonverbal messaging are no longer just optional accessibility features. They are the primary method of delivery. I mean, if 85% of people are watching on mute, is a marketing video even a video anymore, or has it essentially evolved into a high-res moving billboard?
That's a great question. And when you combine that high-resolution, full-bleed imagery with dynamic text captioning, you are essentially asking the brain to process two different visual languages simultaneously.
Right.
You're processing the kinetic movement of the video and the symbolic meaning of the text. This demands an incredibly high level of visual literacy from the user. But ironically, it feels less intrusive than audio.
Oh, definitely.
Audio is invasive. It commands the acoustic space around you and dictates the pacing of your attention. Silent visual storytelling allows the user to maintain a sense of environmental control while still engaging with the content.
That concept of environmental control is so key. Like when I am silently scrolling on the couch while the TV is on, or if I'm on a crowded train, I'm curating my own sensory inputs.
Exactly.
And the businesses that recognize this are the ones thriving. The source actually frames this adaptation as inclusive content. By designing for the silent scroller, marketers are forced to build campaigns that don't rely on auditory cues to make sense.
And the really beautiful byproduct of that adaptation is that the digital ecosystem inadvertently becomes far more accessible.
Right, accessibility.
Yeah. Good design often stems from extreme constraints. When you build a communication strategy that must survive an 8-second window on a tiny screen without any sound,
You have to be perfect.
you are forced to be incredibly precise with your visual hierarchy. You have to use contrasting colors, clear typography, and unmistakable visual cues.
Yeah.
And that level of clarity doesn't just benefit the person watching on mute in a waiting room. It creates a far superior experience for individuals with auditory processing disorders or hearing impairments. The constraint of the medium actually drives a much more universal design language.
It's a really powerful secondary effect of this brutal attention economy. So let's map out the journey we've built so far.
Okay.
You've intercepted the user's 8-second filter. You've matched their convergent, action-oriented mental state.
Right.
You've bypassed their cognitive friction with deep-linked, skimmable architecture.
Yep.
You've communicated a complex narrative using a silent, full-bleed visual language. The momentum is peaking.
They're ready.
But the window is still closing. So what is the final essential mechanism that seals the micro moment before the attention just dissipates?
Well, you have to explicitly tell the brain how to offload the cognitive burden of the decision. You have to provide the choice architecture that finalizes the action.
So in the marketing world and in the source text, this is referred to as the CTA, the call to action.
Right, the CTA.
The guidance is always that these prompts must be clearly laid out, compelling, and just prominently positioned. The goal is to minimize exit opportunities, and they provide examples of highly optimized phrasing from the text, like tap to see more, shop the product, explore now, get exclusive access.
Notice the linguistic structure of those examples. Every single one begins with a definitive active verb. Tap, shop, explore, get. This is not accidental.
Right. It completely eliminates the need for translation. Because look, if you've just convinced me that your product solves my problem, the absolute worst thing you can do is leave me to figure out the logistics of how to actually acquire it.
Right.
It's like a great salesperson giving an amazing pitch and then just staring blankly at the customer instead of telling them where the cash register is.
That is exactly what it's like.
A vague instruction just acts like cognitive deadweight. If the prompt just says, learn more, or worse, just drops me on a page with no direction at all, my brain has to pause, assess the interface, figure out where the card is, and determine the next logical step.
And in that pause...
The 8 seconds are up, the real world intrudes, and I scroll away.
Exactly. We discussed interaction cost earlier. The final prompt is where interaction cost is absolutely lethal. When the user has reached the point of intent, they're basically experiencing a form of decision fatigue.
Right.
They have expended their micro-allotment of focus evaluating your proposition. So a highly optimized active prompt acts as a cognitive relief valve. It explicitly answers the subconscious question that's just screaming in the user's mind right then, which is, what exactly do you want me to do next?
Yeah, tell me what to do.
Exactly. By providing a clear, commanding verb, you remove the final ounce of decision-making friction. You aren't just asking for the sale, you are providing the easiest possible off-ramp for the user's cognitive load.
It closes the loop. The momentum generated by the initial stimulus is smoothly transferred into a tangible action, and the psychological transaction is complete.
Precisely.
So let's pull all of this together and really recap the core mission of today's deep dive for you listening. We set out to understand the underlying mechanics of consumer attention in an era of just rapid digital acceleration.
Right.
And what the insights from Stella Pop reveal is that surviving the 8-second attention span is not about shouting louder or using brighter colors or just contributing to the noise.
No, not at all.
It's an exercise in extreme psychological empathy. It's about being hyper-relevant. It requires understanding that the user is in a fast-paced, action-oriented state, aggressively filtering out irrelevance to protect their own cognitive bandwidth. So to survive that filter, communication must be entirely frictionless. It means optimizing for mobile action, translating complex ideas into skimmable, easily digestible visual anchors, embracing silent but visually stunning content, streamlining the journey with deep links, and always providing a clear next step.
It really is a masterclass in behavioral psychology applied at scale. I mean, we are no longer designing information to be read. We were designing it to be instantly absorbed and acted upon. It's the architecture of the micro-moment.
Absolutely.
Which, leaves us with a rather profound implication to consider for the future.
Oh, I like where this is going.
If the human brain is rapidly adapting its heuristics to process complex narratives, evaluate credibility, and execute complex purchasing decisions in these highly compressed 8-second silent windows.
Right.
What does this paradigm shift mean for the future of deep learning?
Oh.
Yeah. As this visual, frictionless language becomes the absolute default mode of cognitive processing, will the educators, the leaders, and the storytellers of tomorrow have to disguise their deepest, most profound lessons inside an 8-second, full-bleed captioned video just to get us to pay attention?
Wait, so will the only way to teach a complex truth be to package it as a micro-moment?
It's something to think about.
That is a fascinating and perhaps slightly unsettling lens through which to view the future of communication. It certainly changes how you think about the mechanics of the digital world the next time you find yourself silently scrolling through your feed, filtering out the noise, waiting for that one piece of content to perfectly align with your intent.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope it gave you a new perspective on the invisible architecture of your own attention. We'll catch you on the next one.